everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, Pete Wright.
I made a breakthrough. It's a minor technological update that has had major impact on my life. Can I tell you what it is?
Yeah.
If there's one thing in my communication, I think we've talked about this before, it's my hate relationship with voicemail. You familiar with this?
Have we talked about that? I'm not sure.
I feel like in the last 4 years, I've brought it up somehow. I hate it. I get behind on it. I never check it. It is the single worst way to get a hold of me. And
that's good to know.
Well, right? After years of having this relationship with voicemail, I changed my outgoing voicemail greeting yesterday. And I said, hey, thanks for calling. You know, I love that you called. Don't leave a message.
Because I'm not checking
Because I'm not checking them. And, you know, I was kinder than that. But it was like, you could text the same number that you just called. You could, my life has been dramatically improved just in the last 24 hours. I have gotten the funniest emails and texts from people who have said, oh my God, finally you have woken up to the fact that you are terrible with voicemail.
That is awesome.
It is so awesome. I wish I could turn it off. That is the one channel of reaching into me that I wish I could just turn off. And it's really hard to do that. You have to call AT&T. You have to change the service. It's hard to do.
Well, but you know what, Pete? I think you're doing a pretty good job turning it off. And I do that in quotes when you tell people don't leave a message.
Yeah, please don't leave a message. It's not a good,
right.
You know, I actually say, you can go ahead and leave a message. Just know that I'm not going to hear it. And then this is what on my phone, I removed the phone from my home screen.
Your home screen?
Think about that.
What are you talking about?
You know, on my phone. So I use an iPhone, and you know, there's the phone app, the little green phone.
You removed that.
That's not even. You just. It's like any other app. You just hold down and drag it onto another screen. But I realized when I call people, if I need to call them, I always use voice dialing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
you don't even use it.
I don't even use the phone, and so I got rid of it. And it's like I feel 1,000 pounds lighter. And that's the whole reason I'm telling you this is because today we are talking about creating positive energy in your life.
And you did that.
Nikki, it is a brave new world. I love it so much. So before we dig into the nuts and bolts, you should head over to TakeControlADHD.com, get to know the show a little bit better. You can listen right there on the website or subscribe to the mailing list. We would love it if you'd subscribe to the mailing list, and you'll get an email with the latest episode each week. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at TakeControlADHD, and call us, as always, 503-664-4ADD. And that doesn't go to my phone.
No, it does not. It comes to me.
That's part.
I check them. That's right.
We would love to hear from you, and that I do mean seriously. Please, just not on my personal phone. So anyhow, Nikki, why are we talking about positive energy in your life today?
Well, you know, I thought about this, and I thought, what a great follow-up from our show last week when we interviewed Dr. Kirsten Milliken.
Was she a hoot?
Yes, I love her.
Have you dyed your hair?
Positive energy. What's that?
Have you dyed your hair?
No.
You're not going to go pink? Flamingo?
No. My daughter would, but I wouldn't.
No.
But that's okay.
That Kirsten Milliken, she's a gem.
She is, and I love her energy, and I love her book, and I highly recommend people checking that out. April 1st, I believe she said, right?
Yeah, April 1st. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
She's one of those. Do you have a list of your best friends that have never met you yet? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've never even thought of that.
Oh, totally. It's like your aspirational friends. They're like people who are, you know, they may be movie stars, they may be, you know, whatever, thinkers in your field, authors, whatever. They're people when you see them, you're like, wow, we would totally get along. I know that person would really dig me. I didn't even know that Kirsten Milliken was on my list because I had not heard.
Now.
She totally is now. And now that we've done a podcast together, I feel like, you know, I could check that one off the bucket list.
Yeah. No, I could sense that. I knew you that you liked her.
And now we're tight. Now we're Anyhow, you were saying.
I definitely love the message that she's bringing. And so I thought a great follow-up would be how to create positive energy. Obviously, read her book would be one way to do that. But have you noticed like how much energy is just contagious?
Oh, yes. Oh, goodness. It's almost every morning in my house. Do you know what I mean?
Either a good day or a bad day.
Oh yeah, no, it's one of those things. It's like it depends, and you know what? I can actually pinpoint who is responsible for setting the tone if it goes unchecked for the entire house on a given day. I can trace it back to a specific moment every day.
Yeah. Do you have one person that tends to be one way, like, and the other person tends to be like another way, or does everybody kind of change roles as far as if they're happy or sad or mad or whatever?
It tends to be seasonal.
Oh, okay.
And it's my kid. I blame my kids because it all depends on how well they get out of bed in the morning.
Right.
And when it's still dark out, because up here, up in the hinterlands, it's dark late.
Yeah.
And generally in the deepest of winter, my daughter wakes up really grumpy.
Mm-hmm.
And that sets the tone for the whole thing. But once the sun starts coming out, then it's my son. And he refuses to get out of bed, even when the sun is out. And so we're in the middle of that transition between who is grumpy and who's not. And so every morning, it is that conscious effort on behalf of myself and my wife to create and cultivate some positivity around what is otherwise a temperature-setting event. Right,
Oh,
an
it's so
emotional
much
temperature
right.
setting event. Yeah.
Well, and in our house, we're very divided. We are a divided household.
Oh, blue and the gray. I sense a soap opera.
Well, it's just very clear that my daughter is like my husband, and and my son is like me.
Okay, so what does that mean?
It means that my husband and my daughter are probably the two most positive people I've ever met in my life.
I would agree with that.
Yes. And they wake up happy and they sing in the morning and they want to talk in the morning. And they're just like, two peas in a pod. They will be out in the kitchen, just yap, 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 yap. My son and I, like, I like silence. Like, you don't have to sing. It really is okay if you don't. I'll say to my son is 13, good morning. Maybe I'll get a nod,
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting because we are definitely divided in that regard, but it does set the temperature, or tone of the day, I guess. And so it's contagious. There's no doubt about it. Now, both my son and I, to say that we do get out of it. We don't stay that way. This is like first thing in the morning. We are generally pretty positive.
Okay.
But both my son and I live with anxiety too. And my daughter and my husband don't know exactly how that feels. And so when you do live with anxiety, it is a lot harder to stay positive, right?
Yes.
That's what anxiety is.
Truly.
You worry about everything.
Right.
So it is definitely harder. But so when I actually was thinking about this podcast, I thought, well, what is it that I do to create more positive energy in my life? Because I want to be a positive person. I don't want to, I fight. We've talked about this with anxiety, trying to manage anxiety and all of that. And so I have 5 different ways that things that I work on. I don't do them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But these are 5 different ways that I try to create more energy in my life. And I talk to my clients about, and I talk to other people about. Had a conversation with my husband this morning about how he does stay so positive, because I thought, well, gosh, I'm going to go straight to the source.
Does he do these 5 things?
He does these 5 things, and he does some other things that I'm actually going to write about in a blog post that's going to be, it'll be published this week.
Can I ask something? Can I ask something personal?
Yeah.
Can I ask something personal about your husband who's not here to answer?
Right. Yeah.
So you have spoken before about your husband's relationship with MS.
Yes.
A relationship with it.
Yeah.
Right. He has MS, and he has for some time. Has he always been positive? Just naturally, or has it been? Is there some relationship with how he has come to terms with what he lives with every day?
No, he's always been very positive. Always been a positive light.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since the day I met him, he's very good sense of humor, funny. I think that the diagnosis of MS certainly put a different perspective on things, as anybody that's living with a chronic illness and anybody that lives with ADHD, right? I mean, it kind of all goes the same.
Exactly.
When you have something that isn't quite I don't know how to explain it. You have to live with it. You have to manage it somehow, but you still want to live a healthy, well, I wouldn't say healthy. What am I trying to say?
Well, you know what? I think that's actually why I asked the question, and I think it's kind of an important one because whatever you're living with, I think your husband is. And I've said it before. He is a role model to me in so many ways, and this is one of them because of the way that it's so easy to find yourself slipping into sort of the gallows lifestyle, where the only way you can be funny or happy is by really being self-deprecating and just kind of looking negatively at the experience that you're having in the world. And I've never known him to be somebody who's fallen into that. And I think the same thing can be said for ADHD, particularly when you're feeling like you just can't integrate with the world and you're feeling at your very lowest, because that energy is self-fulfilling. And I think I think it's important to just kind of recognize that we all are struggling with conditions, whatever it is, whether it's ADHD or or MS or whatever. Mm-hmm. It is our choice to kind of figure out how we're going to relate back to the world.
And that's actually, you lead into the first kind of strategy or idea that I have. Excuse me, it's not even a strategy. I'm not doing real well with my words today, Pete. You're going to help me out.
You know all the great words.
But I think it is a choice. And that is one of the things that when I talk to my husband about this, and I'll talk again about this in the blog post, is it is about perception and how you perceive what's happening to you. And he'll be the first one to say that, you either look at the glass half empty or you look at it half full. And, it probably does help that he's always had this positive gene, right? He's always been very positive. So when this happened to him, it's life-changing. There's no doubt about it. You go through highs and lows and it's a devastating disease. And I don't wish it upon anybody. But it is our reality. It's his reality. So now that this is who he is, and I remember his doctors always saying, you have to figure out what is your new normal, because your old normal doesn't exist anymore.
It's not going to cut it anymore.
Yeah,
right?
It's not there anymore. And so you do figure that out, and it becomes a choice of, okay, it's a new normal, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad way of living, and so it's, I think it's choosing to have positive energy in your life. And to me, that's really empowering, because for someone like me who lives with anxiety, if I can sit down and really identify, okay, what is it that I'm worried about right now? Why do I have this pit in my stomach? What do I have control over? And if I can even just kind of mentally have a conversation with myself that I'm going to choose to be happy today. I'm going to choose not to think about this. I'm going to choose not to worry about this. That's really empowering.
Truly.
Because you can't control what happens to us, but we certainly can control how we respond. And, I think that sometimes when you're hit with things like maybe you had a really bad day and you feel like your ADHD just really sucks and it got in the way, it's hard to be positive in those moments. And I think that there's a time and place for you to it's okay to feel bad, but then you have to kind of take a step back and shift your perspective of, okay, but what am I going to do about it now?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do I need to do, to make myself feel better?
It sometimes helps me to be really metaphysical. Sometimes it helps me.
That's a big word.
Well, it is, and it's this. It is so easy for me when I'm at my worst to sit down and think that and find myself sitting under the weight of the past. Right? And under the weight of the future I have yet to experience. But if I stop and say, I am only existing right now at this moment in time, everything that is past is gone. I can't go change it. I can't fix it. I can't do anything about it. All I can do is sit and experience right now, today, right now, this second on this couch. That sometimes helps me find the energy, the motivation to climb out of the funk, to as you say, to make that choice, to make the next minute a little bit more positive than the last.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's healthier for your self-esteem and confidence and, not being able to kind of get yourself out of it and move forward, I think is really good. The other thing that I have learned and I think is really important is really being selective of what kind of energy you bring into your life. And so what I mean by that, and I think we've talked about this before, I don't watch the news very often anymore because it is so depressing.
Yeah.
And all the things with the political world right now. Yeah. I mean, it's just so depressing to me. I just don't want to be around it. So I don't watch the news. And I typically, when I make dinner, I typically have the TV on, and I used to always have the news on. And now I don't watch TV. I'll either listen to music or I'll listen to a podcast or I'll watch like an old sitcom, like a Friends or something that I know is going to make me laugh.
Yeah. Right.
But I really, specifically, or I'm very intentional about what I put in. And it's the same thing with like reading books. I know that there's people that feel guilty if they don't finish a book, but I'm like, hey, if you don't like it, don't finish it.
Jump off that train. Seriously.
Yeah. But I think it's really looking for things that inspire you. And I think that's really important when you are feeling anxious or feeling kind of blue or negative about your day. Then it's really important that you're more intentional about what you're bringing into your mindset.
Right.
And Brad, my husband, said the same thing. He really pays attention to the people that lift him up. And those are the people that he tends to want to be around more, or the people that are very positive and are uplifting. And that's important.
Yeah.
So this next idea to create more positive energy in your life may surprise you a little bit because you don't hear a lot about this, is not to gossip.
I like this one.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Right? Because there really isn't anything positive about gossiping.
Yeah.
And I recently watched a video from Brene Brown, and she was kind of talking about trust when she was talking about gossip. But she was saying, you really can't trust someone who is gossiping about somebody else because they probably are going to be gossiping about you too.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, that's so true. And I think, I don't know about men because I'm not a man, but I know as a woman, it's really easy to get, to fall into that trap. And it's not that you're being mean, or you're talking bad about people, but it's really easy to get together with a group of girlfriends or a group of moms in the parking lot and talk about, did you hear about this? Or did you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you're not alone. And men like to say, oh, men don't gossip. Men don't think that deeply enough. But it's really, it's anybody can fall into this trap. This does not necessarily fall on gender lines. This is something that is all about how you're wired to relate to the world, I think. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you're right. And I do fall into that trap. I have in the past, and I try to, it's, again, I think when I'm at my most centered, I realize that what I am largely wanting to gossip about is the stuff that I'm trying to integrate into my understanding of whatever this person is going through, right? Whether it's a divorce or an affair or whatever, it's usually because, oh my gosh, I have to figure out how to relate to this, and I need to talk about it out loud. And sometimes it's not malicious, but it almost always appears malicious.
Well, and sometimes you don't feel bad, or you do feel bad. You feel bad about having that conversation. And so I think that when you're in a situation where the conversation is starting to lead that way, one of the ways to create positive energy in your life is to just, avoid the conversation altogether.
Yeah.
Change the subject, get out of the situation. If you're at a party, leave that circle of or that group of people and go somewhere else or whatever.
Sometimes
I think you're going to feel better.
Yeah. And sometimes gossip comes out of a social anxiety too. So if you're dealing with anxiety, I know I feel like this when I'm feeling most anxious in social situations, because I'm not very good, I don't think, at social situations, like going to parties and things. I know I'm not good at it. I don't really like it because I'm uncomfortable with it. And sometimes gossipy stuff is low-hanging fruit to get a conversation started.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
Hey, did you hear about so-and-so? And, mainly the exercise around dealing with social anxiety is practicing coming up with topics of conversation that don't involve other people in your social group.
Exactly.
Right. Unless you're celebrating them.
Right.
That's a great way to build more energy. It's like, oh my gosh, did you hear this? Somebody just got something published or won an award or started a new podcast about ADHD, and they're really smart and funny.
and awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, so speaking of podcasts, remember when we did that wonderful interview with Casey about mindfulness?
Oh, Casey. Yes. Yes, I do. Another delightful individual.
Yes, for sure. And that is definitely, I think mindfulness is a great practice to create more positive energy in your life, especially if you're starting to feel kind of anxious, just to take a moment to stop and breathe. And just that simple exercise of 5 deep breaths. I don't know what it is. There's got to be something there, but it just immediately makes you feel more calm and more positive, because when you're more calm, you're more positive. Yeah. Right. So
totally.
And it's just a really great way, I think, too, of remembering that, the only thing you really have control over is the present moment. And that just takes you back into that. So great way to create positive energy in your life. This last tip I have, I just love intentional kindness. Who doesn't love intentional kindness? And I think that just brings so much positive energy in your life when you make a point to smile at a stranger or to hold the door open for someone, helping somebody that looks like they may need some help, You know
what you do today? Look at you, go to Facebook. I know you're on Facebook. Go to Facebook, and anybody where it says, hey, so-and-so is having a birthday today, don't post on their timeline, call them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It'll change your day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, and I would encourage people to do this all the time, right? Intentional kindness throughout your life and day, and really make a point to do it. If you're a parent, I really suggest that you do it in front of your kids. And I know that seems like really intentional. Like, am I trying to
hanging a flag on it a little bit?
Yeah, or like you're trying to get something out of just being kind. I mean, I know that seems kind of strange, but there is something about that I think, because they're looking at you as a role model. And I'll just give you a quick example. We were at the grocery store and I was with my daughter, and there was a lady who was in a, one of those scooter type of things. And she was at the frozen foods section, and I could tell that she was having some trouble getting the food that she needed. And her chair kept getting kind of in the way of the door. And so I stopped and I said, can I help you? And I opened the door for her. And at first she said, oh no, I'm okay. And then something fell. And she's like, oh, I guess I need some help.
I'm not okay anymore.
Yeah. And she kind of made a joke out of it, and I helped her. And my daughter was with me, and she's like, well, Mama, that was really nice of you to do that.
Oh.
And I certainly did not do that just because my daughter was with me. I did it just to do it. But I thought it was also very sweet that she noticed, because when they notice things like that, they'll do that. And what are we doing? We're spreading kindness that way.
Oh, that's so nice.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So I like that. Intentional kindness. I have another story to share with you.
Oh, okay. Let's do it.
This is a long podcast. We have a lot to talk about with creative energy. So this podcast, this outline, these ideas that I'm giving you, were actually originally a blog post. And when I wrote it out, I was inspired by a few different people in my life. And one of those people actually happens to be my editor, who edits the blog posts and the newsletters for me. And she obviously edited this blog post before I decided it to be a podcast. And she wrote back to me, and I want to share with what she said. So this is what she had to say. Your blogs are many times divinely pertinent in my life. It's so funny because I try to practice all these ideas, and lately I feel like when I'm kind, I get burned. Our yoga teacher last week read a quote from a TED Talk about allowing ourselves to be vulnerable in order to feel more love. Basically reinforcing if we continue to stay positive and open, we will feel even more love. I noticed that in those negative experiences with people, my true friends came out and supported me. So my reply back to her, because she does not know that she was one of the people that inspired me to write about this, I said to her, it's ironic because when I'm writing this, you popped into my mind several times. You are definitely one of the most positive people I know. I specifically remember us having dinner last year, and I don't remember the details of the conversation, but I do remember you were not quick to judge. You were willing to explore the other perspective first, and it left quite the impression on me. So I hope you know that your positive energy does spread.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Well, and it was just a really, it's just interesting. I wanted to share this because I think that, it's true. The world is not always kind, and it's not fair all the time. And when going back to my own personal experience with my husband's MS, I mean, it's not fair that he has to deal with this. It's not fair that you have to deal with ADHD. I mean, it just isn't. But I hope that these things don't stop people from continuing to be kind and gracious and spread that positive energy, because when they do, it does leave an impression on people, and they probably don't even know it's happening. You may never get the response back that, hey, you did this and it made a difference on how I see things. Because it really does. I mean, it's just as contagious as negative energy. And so my challenge for everybody listening is that, do something intentional today. Just like Pete said, if you have a birthday, call that person instead of just doing the post on Facebook. Do something a little extra. Because man, I mean, wouldn't you rather spread the positive love, the positive light, the positive energy than that negative, icky stuff?
Yeah, stay away from the icky stuff. It's sort of it's really healthily kind of insidious. Like when you look at, I don't know, trees. What do they say? In winter, trees are growing just as fast. They're just growing their roots down instead of their leaves out, right? I mean, it's when you are being kind, when you are not gossiping, when you're selecting to encourage, positive things. You might get burned a couple of times because the world is funny that way, but generally, you are emanating a positive energy into the world, and that's better. Be good to yourself, and in such you'll be good to the world. So I love it. This is great.
There you go.
I think this is a great, long or not, this is a great conversation. Thank you so much, right. Nikki Kinzer. This is wonderful. Do we have any other news for the people?
No.
Good. All right. I think
not
that's
right
it.
now. I think we're good.
So check out the show notes for this particular episode. Once again, Take Control ADHD. I think this is, 245. Episode 245. Check that out.
That's crazy.
We're almost on 250.
Woo.
Woo. Anyway, 245 on the website. Head over there. You'll find all the show notes, links to past podcasts that we mentioned on the show, and you can subscribe once again on iTunes. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.